there. And there we go. Three, two, and one. Well, Mayor Wiza, welcome back. Welcome back to the United States.
Hola, bom dia.
Mayor Wiza upsetting the rotation because he went to Barcelona, Spain, and did not offer to take me with him.
No, well, I knew you weren't a Barca fan,
Yeah, that's true.
so it didn't make sense to offer you to go into enemy territory. That'd be like having a Packers fans get a tour of, I don't know, do Vikings have a stadium?
They do. Yeah, they
Yeah, I
do.
remember the Metrodome, but that's about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's a different one now, but yeah.
But it was a good trip. We got to see quite a bit of Spain. It was quick because with my job you can only go in short bursts. But if we didn't do those short trips, my wife would probably kill me. So we went to Madrid for a while. We went up the coast, Costa Brava, and we went into Andorra, which
Hmm.
is sixth smallest country in the world.
Right.
I don't know anybody else now that has an Andorra passport stamp, but I do.
I yeah, I couldn't tell you either. They do have their own national team, though. If we you brought up soccer right away, Andorra does have a national team. They
Really?
You do see them compete every now and then, not very often, but they do. But yes, you were in Barcelona and all over the place, and you said you did get a little tiny bit of soccer hooligan experience.
Yeah, yeah. So apparently there was some match,
Mm-hmm.
big deal that was going on. You would know this better than me.
Mm-hmm.
They had banners all throughout the city, and everybody was selling merchandise that looked like game day at Lambeau kind of thing. They had a big banner across one of the bridges along the river about the upcoming match. I don't remember the names, but
Mm-hmm.
the hotel that we were staying at also had tickets. So if you would have joined us on vacation, you could have went to the game if
Mm-hmm.
that was your thing. But
Yeah. Yeah.
regardless, my favorite part, we went to Toledo.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen the Toledo steel, and I bought myself a sword. We got a demonstration of them forging the swords,
Oh wow.
and of course, I had to buy myself one because when else are you going to get the opportunity? I mean, it's probably the second most famous knife manufacturing area or blade manufacturing area in the world, next to Damascus, probably.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to pick that up. Had to ship it though. Apparently, customs and TSA won't allow you to bring swords on a plane.
That's a
Uh,
bad idea. Yeah, that's a bad idea. Yeah, you good thing you were smart and on that note. But we're glad to
right.
have you back from Europe and jump right back into city business. Since the last time we talked to you, you've actually reworked one of your city ordinances dealing with everybody's favorite, the referendum on road projects. Give
Yeah.
an idea of what you've done with this and how that's going to impact residents moving forward.
So what happened was that $1 million referendum, predominantly for Business 51, which by the way is still going through. The council has made that very clear that they're going to continue on with the road diet and the roundabout at Fourth and Division Street, which I still think is a pretty bad idea. But the council made their decision, and that's how democracy works.
Hmm.
But the $1 million threshold was put in place by a binding referendum a little over 2 years ago. And the state statutes say you have to keep it on the books for at least 2 years, and then you can change it, remove it, whatever. Rather than removing it, the council chose just to make a few word changes and increase the dollar amount from 1 million to 15 million, which really puts the Business 51 project out of the referendum, the scope of the referendum. Uh, and I mentioned that was a pretty significant thing to do, considering a majority of the people who voted said that they wanted this, and now we're just kind of almost brushing it aside. There was so little discussion on it. It was a little disconcerting for me. But that has been changed now. So any road project that's greater than $15 million, excluding any utility work, would still have to go to a public referendum. But honestly, asking the director, none of our projects at this point would meet that threshold anyway.
Hmm.
So that rather than removing the ordinance, they just made it a dollar amount that really isn't going to be effective,
Yeah.
until inflation catches up, I suppose. So that was
Yeah.
done. And the Business 51 project, as I said, is still moving along. There's going to be work starting this year on the north side of that project from Fourth Avenue to the northern edge of the city.
And I know that it's Business 51 is going to be kind of broken up into about three different phases or so. And each one of them is probably going to be just under that $15 million dollar threshold. So I guess that being said, I mean, is there movement that's maybe going to see this get taken off of the city books at some point or off the city referendum uh,
No, I don't believe
ordinances?
so.
There we go.
Yeah, I don't believe that it's going to be rescinded at any point. I think in the future, if that $15 million threshold is going to be inhibitive of projects, I think the council would very likely just vote to increase it again.
So at this point, there's really not a whole lot of concern, I guess, that one of these projects is going to come back to residents because I know when this went on the books, you had residents voting on about four or five projects a year almost because each
Yeah,
and every one of
yeah,
your road projects was over that threshold.
yeah. So there was you're right, 4 or 5 different referendums that we had to put questions forward because of transportation projects. It slowed things down a little bit, but it wasn't the end of the world either. So we'll just see where it takes us, I guess.
Mhm. Absolutely. And you mentioned the Business 51 project starting. What is that first phase of work going to be like this summer, and how will traffic be impacted on
So we
that
haven't we
stretch?
haven't bid any of it out yet, so we don't know what the full scope of the project is going to be at this point. But it's going to be starting about with moving utilities um, in that north section, utilities, power lines, cables, things that are underground or telephone poles that are above ground that carry those utilities. Those have to be moved to get them out of the work zone. That's likely where it'll start. Any property acquisition that needs to be done will very likely happen this year. I don't know that it will affect traffic a whole lot during this phase, but the reconstruction that will likely start in 26 certainly will disrupt traffic through that entire corridor.
Yeah, and that's going to be something that people will need to keep an eye on because, as you mentioned, that's one of it's going to impact everyone that drives through there, and there are a lot of cars that drive through there on a regular basis. Even if you're just pulling onto Division Street and then going right back on the interstate, that's one of the busier stretches in the city.
It certainly is. Yeah, and like I said, council made the decision to move forward. Another council decision, the discussion regarding a city administrator, reducing the mayor's duties and salary, and hiring a city administrator, of which our comptroller treasurer expects it to be about $194,000 annually with benefits and so forth and salary to have a full-time city administrator. The things that concern me are we haven't been able to ascertain the reason why some on council think we need this position. We've had 0% increases in our operational budgets for 5 years. We had to go to a public referendum just to hire firefighters. There's just not enough money in the budget to go that far. There are positions that have been approved but haven't been funded yet that have been waiting for years to get these positions funded. And some on council want to talk about leapfrogging all of that and finding $194,000 to pay for a city administrator without a whole lot of at least specifics on why. There's been talk about, well, there'll be greater efficiency, there's better grant opportunities, but our directors and our department heads do a dang fine job right now finding efficiencies. As I mentioned, 5 years with 0% increase,
Mm-hmm.
you find every efficiency you possibly can. And the fact that each department needs more people, leapfrogging this without a really good reason or a cause seems doing a disservice to the citizens. Not only that, I mean, you take away kind of the voters' choice on who they want to lead the city. And in turn, the council hires someone that reports directly to council.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so that can be problematic in and of itself. So we'll see where that goes. That discussion is going to take place at the March Personnel Committee meeting again. Alderperson Jackie Guthrie asked for the consideration to hire be put on the agenda. So we'll be talking about it then.
Yeah. I know in other cities where this setup exists, the mayor becomes a part, many cases becomes a part-time
Mhm.
role. You know, you're just in the office a couple days a week to sign documents and go through meetings and be a cheerleader for the city. I know the argument has been made that having a city administrator, a position that's not elected or not up for election every 2 or 4 years, provides a little more consistency. That the city administrator might remember something that happened 10 years ago that is now either coming to fruition or there's a callback to it uh, at the present time. There's that argument to be made for it, but in what you're saying though is you don't really see how any of that or the need for any of that right now because the people that you do have in place, the department heads, have that longevity. Is that would that be fair?
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement. I mean, if you told any department head that they could have an extra $194,000, they would absolutely inject that into additional staffing. They do a great job now seeking out, applying for, and in many cases being successful in finding grants. Again, because the budgets are so tight that there is no additional money. 5 years, they've had a 0% increase in their operational budget. That's a big deal. I mean, the price of eggs, the price of gas, the price of lumber, everything goes up. And if you don't have any additional money to spend, you have to do less. So finding those efficiencies is absolutely critical. You talk about longevity, and yeah, there are communities that an administrator works. There are communities where a mayor works. We actually, I think it was in the 1930s, tried a position like that, and immediately went back to the mayor status. It's been that way for over 100 years and has been working pretty successfully um, so far. When you talk about longevity, though, there's no guarantee a city administrator is going to stay longer than 4 years either. And in some cases, like with Gary Westcott, he was here for 12 years. I will have 3 terms in, counting my alderman duties. This marks 20 years that I've been involved in municipal government. Find me an administrator with 20 years of experience.
Yeah, and so in this version or this variation, or I should say, this proposal is coming forward to the city council.
Mhm.
Is there any movement to maybe put this out to? Speaking of referendums, putting it before the voters, because I know that's a discussion and a vote that's actually happened here in Wausau too. Should we hire a
Sure.
city administrator?
Yeah, so it has come up in conversation, but hasn't really gained any traction. I don't. No alderperson has expressed an interest in going to a referendum on this. Um, it really seems like they want to make that decision themselves.
Is that, and I mean, if they were to say, let's go to a referendum on this, is that something you would support as well? Let the people have the final say?
Absolutely, that's what democracy is all about. If someone thinks I'm not doing a good job, or any mayor is doing a good job, or any alderperson is not doing a good job, you effectively have a referendum every election cycle,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're not doing what the people want, they're not going to vote you back in, are they?
Generally not.
Yeah. And the other
No.
thing that I find interesting is we've got an elected city clerk, we've got an elected comptroller treasurer, and an elected city attorney. Those positions arguably are only a handful in the state that are elected.
Mm-hmm.
Almost exclusively, they are hired positions. But there's been no talk from anyone at council about considering it for any of those other positions.
So you said this discussion's coming back in March.
Yep,
Does that mean that later in March it could be before the city council for a vote?
it absolutely could. And as of right now, it's kind of what I expect to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever decision the personnel committee makes would go to council the following week. So by the
Mm-hmm.
end of March, they could effectively have authorized hiring a city administrator.
Well, we'll be sure to keep an eye on that as that discussion plays out next month. Before we let you go, though, I know you've got some community events coming up that you wanted to spotlight as well to make sure the people know about those before we
Absolutely.
go here.
So yeah, so just last week, Central Wisconsin Community Theater wrapped up their production of Clue. Keep an eye out because they do 4 or 5 shows a year. My favorite one is the Schmeekly Shakes. Schmeekly Reserve has an outdoor pavilion
Hmm.
theater, and they perform a Shakespeare play with a little bit of a twist to it every year. So look forward to that coming up. Playhouse Theater Group on February 15th is having an event fundraiser called Dueling Piano or a Dueling. It's a Dueling Pianos event, but it's a fundraiser as well. That's a nice evening of entertainment, and that's going to be at the Springville Sports Barn. If you want more information on that, you can go to the Playhouse Theater Group Facebook page or contact my office. I'll put you in touch with somebody there to get tickets. But it's called Duly Noted. So
Hmm.
it's really kind of cool. Dually, because there's two of
I,
them.
I I see what you
Noted,
did
because it's a
there.
piano.
Yeah.
I didn't do it. They did. Cassandra is one of the players there, and she is absolutely fabulous. And then, of course, it's already coming up to that time. We're starting to plan for the city Easter egg hunt, which will be, I believe,
Hmm.
April 19th. Don't hold me to that, though, because we're just talking about it. I think it's April 19th.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mayor Wiza, we always appreciate the time. Look forward to chatting again next month.
Absolutely. See you later.